And good day, folks. This is Eric Rolllins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. Today, I'm going to talk about a few different things. Gavin, Newscum, Obama, Trump, all of those are going to be in the mix. Some in the news, things that are going on. Our country's moving fast. But I think this next song kind of sets the mood for the first part of what I'm going to talk about. It is by Demon Jones. It is called Lies. I love this song, and I think you should check this artist out. He's got some good stuff out there.
Oh. Bang, bang. Lies. There was a time you could believe some of what you read, some of what you saw on TV. That ship has sailed, brother. Lies, sweet little lies, they send in the troops, but it's a disguise. They move in the clouds around in the skies. It's lies, lies. So many believe the fear that lives, repeat on TV. Stick to the script and say it's for peace. Cook up a meal to feed to the beast. Promise the most and deliver the least. Unless it's for war with so-called enemies. More for the school that can't add a read. Laws about guns so they learn to bleed. God forbid that you clean up the streets. Teach them a skill so they learn to eat. Redact the document, jack up the lease. Finance the drugs, defund the police. Time all down and never release. Make up a fairy tale no one believes. Ran on every channel so everyone sees. Record it once, replay it for weeks. Remove the barricade, invite the sheep. They came to sing along with the deceit. Defending the ones that put chains on their feet. You think it's insane? Beat the receipt. This many days, but so many eyes for lies. All those in favor? Lies, again with the lies. They fumble the truth, create alibis. They cover up evidence of family ties. It's lies. You can't be serious, the devil can't afford you to be curious. Come for the children, the parents are furious. Unleash the federals, label them terrorists. Don't let them think or allow them to talk. The First Amendment gets outlined in chalk. Second Amendment, we're armed and we're ready. It's time to go on for government tyranny. Limit the terms, disinfect germs. Outlaw the lobby and see if it squirms. Brand new and green and it smells delicious. They're trying to feed you the bugs or the worms, but don't eat the rib by the eggs or the milk. There's cyanide inside your vitamin pill. We got the remedy, we're here to heal. Side effects may include something that kills. Deforms a baby, aborted it will. If mama don't get you, then we surely will. Nowhere to hide, you can run for the hills. We're tracking your phone and reading emails. Digging deep till we find the dirt. Blackmail, taking everything, make it hurt. Make it worse than the darkest of dreams. Uncover the secrets and spill all the jelly beans. Oh yeah, you're free to say what you think. Titanic, the iceberg, and then you sing. Buried as seen, now heard from again. Just not in agreement, the lies are your friends. Bang, bang.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought that kind of set the mood when we realized that, and we're going to go with the idea that Russiagate, all of that nonsense that was pulled on Trump in his first term, it was nonsense. There was nothing there. It was built all on lies. But now all of a sudden, Trump's in the second time, and his DNI, Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has uncovered a bunch of stuff where it looks like, again, I have not looked through all the evidence. I've looked through several pages, but not quite there. It looks like Obama colluded with the FBI, with the CIA, to try to tank Trump. Now, if he wanted to, on his own, go try to tank Trump, that's fair game. Instead, from office, he used government, the power of government, to create this whole Russia collusion hoax. Not only did he collude, they said it was treasonous. There was all kinds of things. And they were calling Trump somebody that had committed treason, at least my senator, one of my two. And it's sad that California has two whiny, liberal, not very intelligent senators. Adam Schiff, who has been proven to be a liar on multiple occasions. Adam Kinzinger. definitely called Trump all kinds of nasty names, claimed, just like Adam Schiff, that there was evidence. And then they came up with the big donut. That's pretty interesting. Now, it's a huge deal that Obama was the director of that. He wasn't even smart enough to hide it. It was like he was so arrogant that he didn't feel the need to hide it. Like he had ushered in a new age where, to quote Michelle Obama, they could finally be proud of their country. Don't agree with that. And I realize that that's the perspective that Obama's wife came from. She was not proud of this country before. So if you're from the Democratic Party, you're an ends justify the means party, then I suppose when they look at people and they have ideas that disagree with them, they're automatically bad people. It's not that we have a disagreement and we could just, one of us could be profoundly wrong, which I think the left is typically profoundly wrong. I'm sure there's some exception, but they're typically profoundly wrong. They see us as bad people. They call us Nazis, among other things. So, assuming this all sticks, where does this go? And I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this, but it is important, and it's the daily news. If we look at history, when somebody is in a scandal, what typically happens, a government scandal, whether it's Republican or Democrat, nothing happens. The reason I think something might very well happen here is, do you have presidential immunity if you're using the power of government in a way that would be treasonous against the president-elect or, against Trump? That's maybe. The other big wild card is Trump is not the average president. It's very clear he's cut from a different cloth. Would he be willing to take this on? Folks, every time you turn around, he has been, certainly of my lifetime, the most influential, the president that's gotten the most done in, we're working towards 7 months. We're not even quite to 7 months. The last president that did this much in the first 6 months, working towards 7 months in their term, would be FDR. He's so consequential in what he's getting done, how he's taking on the deep state, that maybe he will take on Obama. I'm not sure what's going to happen with this one, but I find it really rather interesting. So one of his staffers did respond, well, this is all nonsense. Of course they're going to say every bit of it's nonsense. Yet if you can go find it, you can find great journalists like Matt Taibbi, a man from the left who's been really fair on how he's reported and how he's looked at issues. It's also a lot of the left is saying, well, Tulsi Gabbard, she's just trying to get even because Hillary proceeded to talk about Tulsi Gabbard when she was running against Tulsi Gabbard, how she was a Russian asset. No evidence, but Hillary never lets little things like evidence get in her way. She wants what she wants. Again, she's part of that end justifies the means. The Republicans have a few of them too. We have the utterly worthless senator from Kentucky, the turtle, Mitch McConnell. And I think he's an end justifies the means. The only thing, as I look at his career, that I think he did well is he got a whole lot of relatively conservative originalist judges through the Senate. Beyond that, well, he's an embarrassment and a creature of the swamp. So if we've changed the narrative, and is this one just a distraction? If it is, watch Trump, because you can bet something else is going on. If all this is to distract us, just like I wonder with Epstein, was all of that, the way they approached it, was it all just a screw up with Pam Bondi, or was it a setup that then push the Democrats because they have to oppose whatever Trump does. So he sets their narrative, just like he sets the narrative, he sets the agenda for the Republicans. He sets it for the Democrats because they have to respond, and they have to be the opposite. Doesn't matter whether Trump has a good idea or a bad idea. They have to be the opposite. Well, by him not releasing the Epstein list after saying he was, all of a sudden the Democrats, who were the ones who were opposed to it, who were the ones that were in total control during most of Biden, they didn't do a thing about it and didn't say a word. Now all of a sudden they're mobilized. We must publish the Epstein list. Did Trump set him up for that? Maybe. I'd say time will tell on that. Now, there were hearings, congressional hearings, both Senate and House. The Senate hearings decided that, yes, Russia did try to influence the election. It was not clear in the findings of that. They weren't willing to say, oh, yeah, they favored Hillary or Trump. It was very clear, though, that they bought some ads. They used social media. But the key thing is no votes were actually turned over, aside from by influencing people through social media. And they don't know, you can't really measure that. So it didn't change the vote tallies. I hope this isn't all just a big distraction and a waste of time. And I think that unless there's consequences for Obama's very clearly bad behavior, they're going to do it again. Hear that? They're going to do it again. Again, they're an end justifies the means party. And if your opponent, the Democrats' opponent, the left's opponent, can be labeled as a Nazi, why? They throw that term around constantly, a fascist, then, and there should be more violence because the Democrats, they're calling for more violence on a whole host of issues. Boy, we can't take it, and they're destroying our democracy. Well, they were a republic, and I don't believe that violence is ever really the solution. All it does is inflame more people and make things worse rather than better. That there's rare exception to where violence was a reasonable thing. World War II, I would give as an example. We'd all be speaking German or Japanese or possibly Italian, depending on how they divided things up, if we hadn't fought that war. Instead, we fought it against tyrants. Okay, so on rare occasion, violence is the right choice. What if you're dealing with somebody completely unreasonable like the state of Iran, the country of Iran, where they're run by a religious faction? They're a theocracy. They do have elections, but really all of the power rests with the head religious leader. And they weren't willing to negotiate. And they were a sponsor of terrorism. Well, we blew up a minimum number of people and a huge amount of infrastructure to try to destroy their nuclear ambitions. And the left says, oh, well, they weren't really going to do anything. Well, if they were enriching uranium, you only need to get it up to a very minor level before it's ready to be used just to generate power. Anything above that, it starts with a dirty bomb and works its way up from there. And they say, well, to be an effective nuclear weapon, it has to be up at a certain level, and they weren't quite there. Folks, do you realize, I can't remember if it was Nagasaki or Hiroshima, one was plutonium, one was uranium, but they had a lower level, and look at the devastation it caused. It was not fully enriched to the level they say it needs to be. What if they just did a dirty bomb and bombed the Great Lakes? What would that do to the water supply for, a third of the country? It'd be contaminated. So the idea of somebody that is a sponsor and eagerly embraces terrorism, and again, interestingly enough, is an end justifies the means group, just like the Democrats. Now, I'm not actually calling the Democrats a terrorist. I'm saying there's some parallels there. That if you work from that, well, it's okay because my opponent is just plain awful. They can't be trusted. They're evil. Well, where's that leave things? So during Biden, Hillary kept talking about Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian asset. She never let go of that was a stolen election. You know how in January 6th it was the worst since Pearl Harbor? And that came from former VP Kamala Harris. You know, Democrat Kamala Harris. It was the worst thing since Pearl Harbor. We had one cop that died of complications later and one person on Trump's side that was shot by a cop. Almost everybody in there was kind of like a tourist. Those big giant locked doors can only be opened from the inside. Cops were waving people in. But it was the worst thing since Pearl Harbor. Again, they were willing to lie in order to sway the less informed voter as to what they believed was right. So I hope that this whole craziness with Obama colluding, I hope that there actually are teeth in it. I don't know that there will be. I want to pivot away from that, though. That's something that we can't forget about because this was all over the news, and suddenly it wasn't when this new information about Biden came up, was the auto pen. Thousands of people were pardoned by Joe Biden. Thousands. All through an auto pen. A lot of them were really bad news criminals that had not served their time yet. Now, presidents often pardon somebody that has done things that are really pretty awful. Trump pardoned some people, but they'd served basically their full time. They were down to just a few months. And he gave some people some second chances, as opposed to Biden auto pen pardoned some people that they'd hardly served their time. And some of them were life without parole because they were that bad news. And now they're on the streets with all of you. See that as a huge problem. I hope this one doesn't go away. I hope there are consequences for using an auto pen. I hope there were consequences for him preemptively pardoning his son. Now, why would he need to do that if there was nothing there? It just doesn't make sense. Unless there was something there. He preemptively pardoned his wife. He preemptively pardoned his sister. He preemptively pardoned his brother. Now, normally what happens with a pardon is you've already been accused of a crime. You've already been accused of a crime. And then a president erases that crime. But he can't look through a whole period of time where you haven't even been charged. So it's first time in history. So I don't want this one to go away. While I've not been terribly happy with Rand Paul, lately Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, I don't think he's letting this one go, and I hope he follows up on this one because he does do some good things. Well, we're going to go ahead and go to our first break. This is Eric Rolllins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Thank you to everybody that's listening on social media. It's always encouraging to me that you're willing to spend your time to share, to like, to comment. Some of you even subscribe and listen to me every week. What a privilege for me to be trusted. Or maybe I'm just so bad that maybe it's just a privilege that I get to put you to sleep with my calm voice. Whatever it is, it's appreciated. Hey, let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rolllins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. So I mentioned we're going to talk Trump. We talked some Trump. We talked some Biden. We talked a fair amount about what the implications, because Obama doesn't seem to have the pull within the Democratic Party he used to. It's like all of a sudden there's some rust on him instead of him being the golden child. Because the left has kind of moved. Obama in some ways was kind of a center left. I wouldn't say he was on the right at all, but kind of center left, though apparently devious. And now we've got new people, new rising stars that are on the wrong side of issues. For instance, when it went to Congress to vote on whether men should be allowed in women's sports, which was clearly a violation of Title IX. All this, Title IX is a law that was put in place, I believe, in the 70s to make sure that women had equal opportunity in sports. And then all of a sudden we have these pretend women that went, what a great scam. If I was to run with the women, I'd do better, like Leah Thomas. You know, he, whatever that Leah Thomas currently is, that's not clear to me. Clearly a pretend woman, though. Was well below the 100th place. Nowhere near the top for men's swimming. And all of a sudden decided, well, I'm going to compete against women and won first place. Beat some of the best swimmers in the world. Except clearly men and women are different. Well, that's at least 70-30 issue. And the Democrats voted against stopping men from being in women's sports. Again, if you want to have a third trans category, whatever. I don't care. It's not that big a deal. But, you know, I think you actually have to go the whole way before I even begin to take you seriously. You're going to say you're trans, but you're still got your parts. The women need to have an addictomy to make it official. And the women or the men, I don't know what you call that operation, but I'll take you seriously if you actually do some chopping, though I will feel sorry for you, because if you do some chopping, you have to have anti-rejection, just like when somebody has a kidney that is implanted. They have a bad kidney and they have to get an implant. They have to take anti-rejection, anti-autoimmune rejection drugs for the rest of their life. Well, you chop or cut parts, you have to do the same thing. The Democrats are on the wrong side of the issue, and that's a huge problem. That's not the only issue that they're on the wrong side, but rather than seeing that as a horrible thing, I see that as a moment of hope. They keep embracing the wrong side of an issue. Another place. They very much want kids, minors, you know, those people that are not old enough to drink, in many cases to drive, to own a gun. Minors, under the age of 18. And yet the left has decided it's okay to, particularly here in California, it's okay for the school district to hide whether a kid wants to transition. It's okay to steal your kid. There's some laws coming up through our assembly. It's okay to steal a kid, meaning somebody who's not a parent could change their birth certificate and then just take them. Or if the state didn't like how the parent was dealing with the transitioning, because, you know, we're supposed to transition every kid we could, the state is quite willing to take away custody. 70-30 issue, maybe worse. So as bad as these things are, I think that at this next opportunity to vote, I know a lot of people that are eager to vote. Another crazy one. In California, the Democrats decided it was a good idea if you could buy and sell without the penalty being a felony, you could buy and sell, whether it's male or female, 16 and 17-year-olds. Prostitution. And they decided it shouldn't be a problem. Well, that's such a crazy, insane take that luckily people like David Tongipa, my local assemblyman, Shannon Grove, my local state senator, they went to the media. We use social media, and we basically let our voices be heard. And finally, common sense ruled the day, but the Democrats wanted no part of it. Another great example, pivoting towards Gavin Newsom. We had a problem with crime here in California. We still do. It's still worse than most states because we have a system that is largely unaccountable. So we have a process called a ballot initiative process where we decided we had enough of criminals being able to come in, steal $950 worth of stuff, and it was just a misdemeanor, and they weren't even cumulative. Let's say a motivated criminal went, I need to make some real money today. I'm going to go in and break in 10 times, but I'm only going to steal 950. And a lot of them go in with calculators or with their phone, using the calculator and figuring it out so they make sure they don't exceed the limit. So it's just a misdemeanor. So let's see it. Let's call that, round it to $10,000. They could steal $10,000 worth of stuff in a day because each one, they weren't cumulative. Well, and it would just be a misdemeanor for each one of those. If they got caught, since it's just a misdemeanor, cops didn't want to bother because they knew by the time they finished the paperwork, they'd already be out. So Californians decided we'd had enough, and we passed Prop 36, which Lord Newsom, Governor Newsom, the unaccountable, unremarkable, extremely good at lying, slick politician and governor of California, sadly, he campaigned against Prop 36. Folks, you need to know that. If you didn't know that, he actively campaigned against Prop 36. And then since it passed, because this was, again, we're about 70-30 issue, he has now done his best, as well as the Democratic-controlled supermajority up in Sacramento, meaning the Assembly and Senate up in Sacramento. They've done their best to not fund the enforcement part of Prop 36. Yikes. And you should be mad about this. But it still says, wait, California is not as crazy as you think. Since the LA fires, when you look at polls, California's moved about 10 points towards the red, towards the right. Well, the last governor race, which ultimately was between Newsom and, what was he, a state senator? I think it's State Senator Brian Dahle from Northern California, who had very little name recognition, was absolutely pitiful at debating, and Newsom destroyed him. And I'm super active in politics, and I am not aware of Brian Dahle even coming to the Central Valley once during the campaign season. And yet, Brian Dahle still got 40%. So with our worst possible candidate, we got 40%. What if we had a little better candidate? And there's some candidates that I like a lot of things about Steve Hilton. I like a lot of things about Leo Zaki. I don't know if Leo Zaki's got the name recognition. Leo, you got to kick it in. I like some things about Daniel Mercury. I like some things about Chad Bianco. I don't know who is going to win, but when I look at polls, the last one I saw, Katie Porter and Steve Hilton were at the top in about 20%, and then it was all divided down. And after that, you saw Alex Padilla, Democrat, and you saw, because it only showed the top 4, and Chad Bianco was down at 6%. I don't know what's going to happen, but every Republican candidate I'm aware of is so much better. Every one of them gives me hope. I just hope that all of those that they're in it and they're pulling at zero, they need to get out. Because if we just divide this vote and we don't get a good Republican candidate through to the general election, through the primary, because California is what they call jungle primary, top two, regardless of party. You could be a libertarian, though I don't like their odds. By the way, they're having their convention in Santanella, which is near Los Banos, this weekend. If you wanted to go check out the libertarians, they're highly entertaining. They're extremely inconsistent. Their last presidential candidate, I believe he was Chad Oliver. Oliver, I'm sure, is the right last name. I'm not sure about the first name. He was for COVID mandates. He's pro-trans. So I don't know what to say about the Libertarian Party, but might be entertaining if you happen to be near Santanella. Just go watch the circus show. Anyway, so getting back to Newsom. He has presided over colossal failures. He's been in for 32 years. 8 years as San Francisco city councilman, 8 years as San Francisco mayor, 8 years as lieutenant governor, and just short of 8 years as governor. So he's termed out, but I'm hoping that if the rest of the nation realizes what a colossal, embarrassing failure, we're billions of dollars in debt here in California. Our budget, this year's budget, is billions of dollars in debt. Yet during COVID, he claimed that we had this huge surplus and he sent people money, specifically California money. I think it was $2,000. Did things change that fast? Were they able to spend the money that fast? Or was it all smoke and mirrors because Gavin regularly lies? During his governorship, we've lost about 300,000 people a year since 2020. So in the last 5 years. Oh, we're 68 billion. I knew it was billions in deficit. We have a gas tax coming up sometime here. It might have already kicked in. 61 cents per gallon going to the state, supposedly to fix some of the worst roads in the country. Except there seems to be no progress on those roads. Once in a while they fix a freeway, but the average roads, whether it's a freeway that's something the state would be responsible for or something the county would be responsible for, our roads are terrible everywhere I drive in California. It's embarrassing. He keeps insisting that we have these super heavy vehicles called electric vehicles on the roads, and they're really a lot rougher on the roads because even if you have a small car, electric vehicles, that batteries, it's heavy. Strangely enough, it weighs more than an engine. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't have electric vehicles. I'm just saying people should have choice. And I don't think that we have the choice we need. So I'm going to shift a little bit towards something that I consider to be a lot more hopeful. We got Prop 36 through. We're still having trouble getting it implemented and funded so that we actually make criminals accountable. But 70% of Californians didn't want the insanity anymore. They wanted law and order. There's a group led by Carl DeMaio called Reform California. Carl DeMaio is an assemblyman from the San Diego area. He's an outspoken Republican. And kind of from his perspective, I'm going to guess and speak a little bit for him. Carl might not like that, but Carl will let me know. The Republican Party has not been particularly effective in having a plan, a statewide plan to take back California. I don't know that he's wrong on that in the 5 years I've been paying attention. Well, one of the cornerstones of his plan to take back California is to have a voter ID initiative. Now, we will start having the hard, actual legal signed documents in October. But for now, he's trying to get people to go to his website, sign up so he has a list of names so that, and he's already got people to pay for the mailing out of the petitions. So he wants people to go and sign up. This voter ID initiative kind of has three elements. One is it requires local registers of voters, and they will be audited, to have accurate voter lists. Now, I don't know that that's totally going to work. We have some counties that are pretty good about it. Out of our 58 counties, we have some counties where, like LA, continually has gotten busted, and then on more than one occasion has had to remove more than 500,000 votes from their voter rolls because they're not maintaining them. In one case, one of the lawsuits removed a little over 1 million votes. And I say votes, except they were not people that were legally voters. They'd moved out of the area, they were deceased, they weren't a citizen, all of those types of things. Those people, so if we audit, it at least will be better. This begins to address part of what I consider to be an unfair vote here in California. You've also got two other elements to this that I think are a huge deal. One is citizen verification. Now think about that. You have to prove who you are, and the people that are trying to vote in your name, unless they just buy your ballot, you could still buy a ballot because we have ballot harvesting, and you show up in the right place, you can buy a ballot. But if they want to go vote in person, or they want to request a ballot, whichever piece of ID you use, there will be a few options. They're going to have to figure that out, and that's supposed to be hidden on the website. So whatever piece of ID is now connected with your proof of citizenship. So it adds an element that makes it harder for somebody to just step in and go, well, I see they haven't voted in the last 2 elections. Maybe I can step in. But to request a ballot, they have to let the local register a voter know which form of ID they initially used. I know this is going to lead to some confusion with people because they're going to forget. Nonetheless, if you can prove who you are, you can show up at the register of voter. Every county has one here in California. You can work that out. And the other thing is, if you vote in person, you have to show photo ID. I think that's huge. Again, doesn't fix our whole problem, moves us towards having free and fair elections. The Democrats here in California have focused on, well, if you're even possibly a legal voter, we need to bend over backwards and make sure that you can vote. I only want people that, yeah, they're here legally. Yeah, they understand that they have a responsibility and they vote. This idea that, well, we don't have to, or my vote doesn't make any difference. Well, when we get to the national level, probably doesn't make a huge difference. When we get to the local level, which affects your life very much, one vote could make a difference. Every year there's multiple city council races that are decided by less than 50 votes. In some cases, just a couple. On that note, though, we're going to take our last break. This is Eric Rolllins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're going to start with that second video. I think you're going to enjoy this one. It's parody. It's from one of my favorite places to find political satire.
Hi,
the
my name.
Babylon Bee. And it makes that point that the left is eager to call names.
It makes
I
me.
think that it's stopped being effective. Let's go ahead and run that. Sorry. This is Eric Rolllins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. For those that are listening on the radio, the Babylon Bee, we are going to play a fun parody about whether somebody's a Nazi. We have somebody that's claiming to be an actual Nazi. By the way, I'm not a Nazi, even though I'm almost a skinhead. That's more nature than anything else. But I think it illustrates a point that the left loves to call names, but they've stopped being so effective when they completely step over any boundaries, any normal. Let's go ahead and play it.
Hi, my name is Chuck, and I'm a Nazi. Actually, I'm a real card-carrying Nazi. Literally. Here's my card. I've been a Nazi as long as I can remember. I believe all the standard Nazi stuff. I hate minorities and undesirables. I think Aryans should rule the world. The Third Reich shall rise again. All the classics. But it's not as fun to be a Nazi anymore. When they started calling Elon Musk a Nazi and Trump and, pretty much every Republican, it made it a lot harder for me to stand out. It's like I go out in public and I'm like, hey everyone, I'm a Nazi. And they're like, big deal. Everyone we don't like is a Nazi. It makes me feel less special. The swastika armband, it used to mean something. Now I'm walking down the street and every Tesla has a swastika painted on it. Every Republican's garage door has one. I just can't stand out from the crowd. Nowadays, anyone who owns a Tesla is a Nazi. Anyone who voted for Trump is a Nazi. Anyone who believes in enforcing our nation's laws is a Nazi. Anyone who doesn't want to sterilize and mutilate people in bizarre medical experiments is a Nazi. Which is a real head scratcher because, honestly, we've been huge supporters of that. Mengele was a real pioneer. I'm just feeling discouraged. I used to be unique, special, different. There weren't many of us. It took real effort and commitment to be a Nazi. Now all you have to do is simply imply online that you don't think students should be stabbed at football games or track meets and bam, instant Nazi. I used to be able to seek Heil in a crowded room and really cause a scene. But now, anyone who's doing the wave at a baseball game or sending their heart out to you in a speech is apparently a Nazi. I guess I just want to go back to the old days when being a Nazi meant something. Because if we change the definition of Nazi to include any old Joe walking down the street, it loses its power. Because when everyone's a Nazi, no one is. Elon Musk is not
Hope
a
you
Nazi.
enjoyed that, folks.
Jordan Peterson
I always
isn't a
laugh
Nazi.
when
Ben
this is the
Shapiro.
Babylon Bee.
Well, now he might be a Nazi.
Great time to have to cough.
But he's a Jew.
Anyway, getting back
He
to
is?
on a
Oh, I
more serious
just
note, I
assumed
think
he
it
had
makes
a bald spot. He was
the
trying to.
point that if everyone's a Nazi, no one's a Nazi. Maybe it'd be more reasonable to articulate your ideas rather than call names. It's probably expecting too much from politicians, and it's unquestionably too much to expect that from the progressive left. So I guess we got to toughen up and just laugh at them. So, but getting back to the whole having a voter ID initiative. If you're interested in signing the petition, you will get first shot at it if you go sign up online, and then they will mail you the actual petition starting in October. I assume probably, they said probably not the first week, probably the second week. You can go to voteridpetition.org if you're interested in volunteering. And if you've already signed up, there will be a couple slots on there. So maybe you can get a couple people on there. Don't just sign yours. There's probably somebody else in your household. This is, again, a 70-30 or better issue. You probably get a neighbor. Or if you're interested in actually volunteering, you can go to voteridvolunteer.org and get some signatures. Or maybe you can be the person that goes and picks them up. Maybe you're the person's got, you're an organizational genius. I actually know a few of them. I'm not one of them, but I know a few that are great for motivating people. And you could go set up crews, think of places. By the way, if you think of a place, don't just complain that the voter ID doesn't have a table there. Why don't you reach out to voteridvolunteer.org and step up? And if you just don't have the time, but you're willing to contribute to what I consider to be a great idea, go to voteridinitiative.org. You can contribute. You got to put gas in the tank to make this happen. But I think this changes the entire game in California. And if this goes to the ballot, it's got to get 1 million signatures. So there's 40 million people in California. Let's say close to 20 million of them are registered to vote. Probably a little higher than that. This still polls above 50% with Democrats and polls above 60% with independents and polls above 80% with Republicans. This can happen. Just 1 million signatures. They have a plan. This could change California. Maybe you wouldn't feel like, oh, my vote doesn't count and there's no hope, which would be the case of the majority of evangelicals, who I would say more often than not would be on at least the conservative side, because if you have biblical values, then I don't think you align very well with the Democrats. So I hope that you go check these out. Even if you just looked up Voter ID Initiative, there'll be a website. Go check it out. See for yourself. Or you can go follow Reform California and Carl DeMaio every day at 5 or almost every day. He has a podcast. A little bigger than mine. But he's doing some good things. There's hope in California. But if we actually want change, we have to work. And I don't see enough people working. So I'm hoping I'm going to inspire you, because we're blessed here. We got the best weather. Not so much in the Central Valley for a couple months, but mostly it's pretty nice here. We got a low cost of living. And if we need to escape it, we got the best mountains. We got an amazing coastline. We here in the Central Valley are spoiled with the best stone fruit in the world. We produce 80% of the country's produce in California. 80%. We're blessed. Folks, this is Eric Rolllins, the Constitutionalist. I want you to get out there and make a difference. And make sure you listen to KXCX 1550 AM, the best talk in town.